Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come. I'm gonna come.
We are also praying for the people of Puerto Rico. We love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. And we also love Puerto Rico.
You guys know I have to let this song go until the end every time. Oh man. Ba-da-ba-dum, 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 boom. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum ba-dum. Hello, everybody. This is Rolo, the Puerto Rican Pistolero, coming to you live from beautiful Miami, Florida. The green screen is not like functioning this evening because we're doing StreamYard, and for whatever reason it lags, and that's the way that it is there. We have a guest. I did say Eastern, but she thought it was Central, so so that's why she's running behind. She'll be here in a few minutes. I kind of thought that's what happened. I think Rebel Scum said that's what she thought happened. So you were right. Never a dull moment here. This is episode 7 of Rolo's Rants, but it was a lot of fun sitting here talking to you guys in the chat for the last half an hour or so. So I enjoyed that because, lately, the way that I rant or I go on these tangents and everything like that on the show, it's really hard for me to pay attention to the chat. Sometimes I feel bad because you guys are having awesome conversations, and but it was you guys are right. This is crazy. We didn't have a guest. We didn't start the show. Greg the Goblin wasn't there. I was dying laughing the other day because my the old man, the OG Pistolero, my dad. He was like, he knew that my brother Commander N and I were playing Helldivers the other day. And he's like, was Greg the Gobbler there? So, my brother and I just started dying. We're like, Greg the Gobbler. I was like, who the hell is that? I'm like, do you call this poor guy a turkey, man? Like, come on, this is Greg the Goblin. He's the freaking extraordinaire, super chat extraordinaire here. I was like, how can you mess up this guy's name? And then my brother sends me a meme today of this like turkey sitting there, and it's like Greg the Gobbler. And I was just like, what the hell, man? So, Greg, if you're out there, I apologize that's what happened. It just became a meme all of a sudden because my dad just doesn't know how to pronounce things, or he's forgetful or something. Who knows? So, but yeah, so that's what's going on. So today, our guest, I'll give you a little bit of an intro on her, is I did post her Twitter account. Let's see, her Twitter account. They can be mean bastards. James the Elite Fan. Here's Jerah's Twitter. Jerah Hutchins. I can't believe that in the 4 years that this YouTube channel has existed, especially back in the day when we used to have a lot of guests, and especially the guests that we had, like Tony Simon, Maj Toure, Kevin Dixie, Rob Pincus, basically everybody that was in Jerah's circle, like 1 degree of separation. And for some reason, we never had Jerah on the show, and it's pretty absurd. Like, I can't believe it. So I'll say this again when she gets on, just because I know that she'll think it's pretty funny. But Jerah is one of those people that I always tell everyone whenever I hang out with her or she's doing something or I describe her, I was like, she's the person that I want to be when I grow up. That's who Jerah is. She's an all-around badass. She's been a firearms instructor for years. She's an entrepreneur, business owner, a cigar aficionado, a bourbon expert, all-around badass. She joined the Texas State Guard in her 30s just because she's like, we need some military service in this family. I'll let her explain that story. It's a great story. But it's crazy what Jerah has done throughout her life, and kind of the many hats that she's worn, and even where her journey continues today. So she'll be able to give us a lot of different insight in, Second Amendment advocacy, firearms instruction, the state of Texas and what's going on there, I'm sure. Some of the experience she's had there. She's the biggest Packers fan that you'll ever find, which is, it's really weird. And when everyone else is shooting with optics, she still shoots with iron sights all the time. And I think that's pretty funny. If you need to ever have a recommendation about a cigar or bourbon, anything like that, just ask Jerah, what do I do? And she's like, well, what are you going to pair it with? What are you going to do that? So she's a true Renaissance woman, as I would say. And I think that you guys will like her as a guest. I got to hang out with her in person in December, and we had Had some dinner, hung out, had some cigars afterwards, and hung out for like 3 or 4 hours or so, and discussed a lot of things from a lot of the things I would like to actually talk with her about on the show. I think you guys would like to get to know her. So she's pretty awesome. I did have the opportunity today to hang out with, and now I can't talk about why we were hanging out yet, because it's going to be a surprise. It's a project that Eric at Cheating Death Custom Guns is working on, but we did get to go out to the range today. It was awesome because it was one of those rare opportunities where you get to go to a range and nobody else is there. It was closed for the day. So we got to hang out. How's it going? C&T Design and Arms. So we got to go hang out on the range. See, I'm in guest mode today, so this looks totally different. We got to shoot some guns. I can't show you everything that we shot, but I will show you mine. So this is Eric, and of course, he's got video of me that's not on my phone. So he is shooting my Palmetto State Armory M110A1 like clone. I got the optic on it. It's a 6 hour Tango MSR 1-8 LPVO. So he got to shoot it, and there you go. You guys will get to see that, how that went. So it shot nice. It's much better on a bipod than it was just shooting it freehand. There's the MP5 and 22 next to it. We had a lot of fun with that as well. So I really like the crazy combination that the M110A1 has going on with the kind of bronze yellow mustardish.
Man, that reset is...
So that's how it is. It's pretty cool. I really enjoy that rifle a lot. I wish 308 wasn't absurdly expensive, because now I actually really like shooting it. My brother was making fun of me because he's like, at the rate you're going, you're going to get like an M1A and you're going to shoot 30-06, and you're just going to be like, I need more and more. And then I'm going to be down to 50 cal and nothing's going to satisfy me, after that. So that's an M110A1. So that's a new rifle that HK is building for the Army. It's going to be, a DMR. It will replace probably the, much to the dismay of gamers everywhere and tactical bros and nerds and LARPers, the M14 EBR. So, which, everybody loves that. That's like the ultimate DMR. So, but it's pretty sweet. Now, the PSA's version of it is direct impingement, which, depending on who you ask, some people think piston guns are better. Some people think DI guns are better. I really haven't had enough experience. It's not like I've had combat experience with either, so I couldn't really tell you which I really prefer, because if you shoot quality guns in either configuration, you're going to have a good experience. That's really just the way it is. But I was impressed. Eric was very impressed. Somebody who's a builder and does this for a living. I think he was pretty surprised by how good that Palmetto State rifle was, and I've been pretty impressed as well. Like I said, their stuff is good. Lowers, things like that, would definitely get them all the time. It seemed like this rifle was pretty solid from what he says. And, his son-in-law is law enforcement. He walked in there too, checking out something else that we were there to try out. And he was pretty impressed by the build quality of the rifle as well. So I think, I think it's a keeper. I would definitely recommend it for anybody that's looking for a solid AR-10, less than, definitely less than $2,000, less than 1,500. And that's pretty much where, you're going to look at your AR-10s in that range. So I think it's pretty solid. Yep, there you go. C&T's got it right there in the chat for the differences. DI guns tend to be more accurate and with less felt recoil. Piston guns run cleaner and are overall more dependable. So there you go. Those are your that's your little difference sheet there. So I enjoyed shooting that. I do have video of him. Well, I don't have video of him shooting the MP5. He's got video of me, so I need to see if he sent me that stuff, because I'd love to show you all what we've got. Let me see. Oh, I do have Jerah here. All right, Jerah is here. Let's bring her in. Hello. How's it going, Jerah? Let's see. You're muted. I think you muted yourself. It says that your mic is not connected. So, can we hear you now? Oh, never mind. She's going back. All right. So it's been, see, this is what it's all about, right? When you're on the internet, you know, dealing with all of this stuff, it's always unpredictable. It's an unpredictable nature of what we do. Scooby Digits, what's going on? Good to see you here. So yeah, the M110 Cologne, the Saber 10, that's what they call their more premium line of rifles, was good. All right. Let's see. Are we working now? Are we working now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sometimes you have to turn it off and turn it back on again.
That's how it is. Good to see you, Jerah. How are you?
Hey, awesome, man. Things have just been getting better since the last time we connected in Florida.
Yep.
So really, really good stuff.
Awesome.
Doing a little work with Operation Underground Railroad.
Awesome.
So we're combating human trafficking, and not just with money, right? Like we go in and get the kids.
Awesome.
You know, so we're not buying them back and funneling more money into human trafficking operations. We're going to get them.
Awesome.
We're working with law enforcement and all that kind of stuff. So doing a little work with them, and you know, still teaching guns here in Texas. About to go on the PDN tour. Got to finish up my schedule for that tonight.
So cool. So for those that don't know, what is PDN?
Oh, it's the Personal Defense Network. So it's sort of a conglomerate of really good gun instructors all over the nation. And in the summertime, I say summertime, we actually start, I think, in April. And we go, I think, through September. And we do gun classes and safety classes and medical classes all across the country. And it's a really, really good way for us to see the needs in places that we don't live. You know, what are the gun laws like in Georgia or Nevada, you know, and what do we need to do to make sure that we're writing curriculum that is, you know, state specific, because we teach in certain states, but also, you know, what does it look like for gun owners all across America? So it's a really awesome, group of people. So it's personaldefensenetwork.com. And lots of amazing instructors. I mean, people that I would definitely recommend to other people, and people that teach, you know, specific things too, not just general things. So you've got, you know, general instructors, and then you've got people that really kind of hone in on things like medical or long distance shooting or doorways and corners type stuff. So really a lot of great minds there in the gun community. Cool.
And how did you end up getting involved with them? Now, how long have you been with PDN?
This will be, I think, my third or fourth year.
Okay.
I think my third, actually. And I used to really pride myself in just teaching the basics and getting people. I took a lot of advanced training myself, but it was never something that I thought that I could teach, because I had never, you know, I'd never been in combat. I had to deal with someone breaking into my house. And so I just really didn't feel like I was qualified to teach that kind of stuff. And I took a lot of pride in preparing people to be ready to take that kind of class and be comfortable in that kind of class, just like I was comfortable walking into any class. And then Rob Pincus, you know, got with me one day, and he was like, listen, you're one of the busiest instructors I've ever seen. And, you know, this was kind of, I think this was like 2020. Or 2019. And he was like, you really need to kind of expand your portfolio of classes. And I really bucked against it. But he convinced me to come to the intuitive defensive shooting instructor course in Reno. And mind you, I got hit by a semi about, let's see, it was right after Thanksgiving. It was the day before Thanksgiving. So it was a Wednesday. Thanksgiving's on a Thursday. I was supposed to fly out for this class on Sunday.
Wow.
And I had 4 broken ribs on one side, 3 fractured ribs on the other, and a huge bruise that went from, you know, the bottom of my, or the top of my thigh in the back of my leg all the way down to my ankle. I couldn't walk on my leg for 2 days. And he was like, I was like, Rob, I don't think I'm going to be able to make this class. And he was like, I think you can.
Yeah, of course, Rob would say.
I think he can. You know, and
Oh, he
he was
would.
not wrong because he was like, listen, it's not a physical class. It's
Mhm.
a we're teaching you how to teach these things, you know, and you're not even really going to do that much shooting. And he was right. But it does have a 50% fail rate because it's hard. There were three guys. I was the only female in the class. There were three guys that
Mhm.
quit the day before the last day
Wow.
because a lot of instructors are regurgitating things from who they learned from, and they're not putting their own mind on it, and
Mhm.
they're not explaining it in their own words. And this class really harps on that. It really forces you to expand your vocabulary for certain people to, suppress your vocabulary for other people, because the
Mhm.
idea is to know your audience, to know your student, and how are they going to learn this, and how can you tell them in a way that they're going to understand, because there's all kinds of intellect levels within the 2A community or within people that are coming into the 2A community. And I'm not saying that, some people are, well, actually I am saying that some people are dumber than others.
Mhm. Yep. It's
Okay,
true.
I mean,
Yep.
let's not cover it up, but everybody has the same right to the Second Amendment. So if you want people to be safe, if you want people to not have accidents, if you want people to execute their self-defense with wisdom and tact, you have to get them to go up some levels,
Mhm.
right? But you got to meet them where they are, okay? And education is what takes the ignorant person, or the person that doesn't seem like they have a lot of intellect in the situation, and you raise them up, right? You meet them where they are and you raise them up. And so it's about learning how to teach. So there are no multiple choice answers on the test. You have to write a whole essay.
Mhm.
You have to answer the questions with actual words. Okay. And so that's what makes it such a difficult class. But the people that come out of that class, if somebody tells you, that's one of the ways that I really like vetting people who are teaching me too, is, hey, did you pass the intuitive defensive shooting instructor class? Because if you did, you're my people.
Mhm.
That means I can trust what you're saying. That means you understand the 7 ways that the body reacts to stress, stimulus, and fear. It means that you are not just regurgitating what came out of someone else's mouth, but you're putting your own thought process to it, and you actually understand the nomenclature and the physics and the kinesiology behind what you're teaching, and the ballistics behind what you're teaching. So I can't recommend that class enough. And it does, and it's not just an instructor class. Like, they have a student version
Mhm.
of that class that we teach on the Personal Defense Network tour. So if you have an opportunity to take that class, you certainly should.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's go back a little bit here, since obviously we started the show a little bit like weird, so I didn't get to do a proper introduction for you. No, it's okay. I kind of told everyone a little bit about that. I had initially met you during the Second Amendment rally in 2019, I think was when I met you the first time, or it was SHOT Show right after in 2020. It was one of those two. And then, throughout the years, we've just kind of had the same circles, whether it's between, Kevin Dixie, Rob Pincus, Maj, Tony Simon, like that entire circle. We've been at different events throughout the years, working with Second Amendment advocacy and all that stuff. So, and it was just crazy that I'd never had you on, on this channel before. And, I explained that you're a firearms instructor. You work in the state of Texas. You're an entrepreneur, a cigar aficionado, a bourbon expert, and also now you're with the Texas State Guard. So let's kind of go through a little bit of the story. And you're a Packers fan, which everybody thinks is random when they know that you live in Texas.
That's
and all
wild.
that stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, oh my God, there has to be something wrong with her, and there's that.
That's what a lot of people would say, but hey, they did pretty good this year. So, and they did better than Dallas. So, forget the Cowboys. So how did you grow up in a family that was, firearms oriented? How did you get into that yourself and decide that you wanted to be a firearms instructor? I guess we can start there.
Yeah. I grew up, my grandfather was an immigrant from Sicily, and came to America, loved the Second Amendment, and had a decent collection of guns. But when we were growing up, there's 6 grandkids in total. And he was like, if they're going to be in my house, you need to know your way around them. You don't have to love it, but you have to know it. And I really just kind of took to that like a fish in water,
Mhm.
and really, really enjoyed doing that. And so, he and I would hunt together. My friends, I'm from a rural Texas town, East Texas town, pretty small. And so we were the quintessential Texans that, people think we are,
Mhm.
in foreign countries, or, people from New York or whatever. Like, we did get up and go hunt before school, and we had, that was part of our sport. We had a rifle team, and we had a clay tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And so, I've been shooting for 31 years
Mhm.
almost. And then I started teaching, in my early 20s. So I've been teaching for 16, 17 years now.
Wow.
And I was so fortunate and lucky to grow up around people who really loved the Second Amendment and wanted to kind of instill that in their kids. And I've found, and what I've seen is people that do that, for the most part, their kids grow up with a really good appreciation of responsibility, accountability. They're more likely not to be bullies,
Mhm.
things like that. And then I was a three gunner for a little while, and
Cool.
then I got a blood clot in my right eye, so I became cross-eye dominant. So I had to learn how to shoot long guns left-handed, which was a feat. It's not easy.
Mhm.
And then I took that and learned that it actually gave me a little bit of an advantage. So I can run two platforms at the same time, and they're not falling over each other, right? So I can have my AR on the left side and my pistol on the right side. It made me ambidextrous with the
Cool.
pistol as well. So I actually really like it. People think it's weird when they see me pick up a long gun with my left and a pistol with my right, and I kind of have to explain it to them. But it actually became a really cool advantage for, when I take classes, like when we do stuff at Train and Learn, right? And
Mhm.
you're rolling to a rifle, thing for an hour, and then you got to turn around and go to a pistol thing
Yep.
for an hour. I don't have to take anything off.
Mhm.
I can just roll with it. And then I went into the military when I was 38. I love it.
Mhm.
Started from the very bottom. I had 25-year-olds, that outranked me. But I've loved every minute of being enlisted. It's amazing. I've been in for almost 4 years now,
Cool.
and I'll rank sergeant this year. I'll be
Mhm.
promoted to sergeant this year. And so I can tell you with great certainty that what's happening at our border is not a joke.
Mhm. Yep.
It's not being inflated. It's not being exaggerated. It is a problem. And so when you say, hey, we just need to just let people in, and
Mhm.
what happened to, bring me your hungry and bring me your downtrodden. You're right. I get that. But that's not who's coming here.
Mhm.
uh, there's very, very, in if you look at the situation as a whole, the people who are coming here that are actually seeking asylum are sparse in comparison to human traffickers, criminals, rapists, terrorists. Those are the people that they are taking advantage of a weak government and a weak border.
Mhm.
So we're combating that. And then, like I said, I just started doing some work with Operation Underground Railroad, which is an
Mhm.
awesome story. And then, I'm still teaching guns, and just, man, I live a really cool life, and I
Mhm.
enjoy it.
Yeah, you do.
it.
You definitely do. What inspired? Because that was a great story. When I spoke with you a couple of months ago, to join the Texas State Guard, especially in your 30s, you've already accomplished a lot. It's like one of those things. It's like, well, why? What was the why there? And I thought that how you kind of explained it was pretty awesome, and how you ended up going to the Texas State Guard.
I was, I tried to go into the military. I knew that I didn't want to go to college.
Hmm.
And I think that I knew then what people are figuring out now is a college degree, for the most part, is overrated.
Hmm.
If you're not going for something super specific, medical school, engineer, um, things that would require you to really need to go and study in an environment like that, I think that the trades are making a huge resurgence, and I love that. But I wanted to do a trade, back then. I wanted to go into the military. I wanted to learn a job. I wanted to do my 20 years because I would have been, 38
Hmm.
when I would have gotten out. I would have had a retirement. I would have had the GI Bill. If I wanted, I still would have been
Yep.
young. I wanted to do that. And so I tried to go into the Marine Corps when I was 19, and they wouldn't let me because I have a couple of vision problems, right? So we talked about that.
Hmm.
Um, and so I got the blood clot in my eye right before I tried to go into the military.
Hmm.
Now I was also born with no peripheral vision.
Okay.
So they didn't have a waiver for that at the time, and I don't think they do because I tried to go I tried to go Federal Reservist
Hmm.
when I was like 36 or 37, and they still didn't have a waiver for that, which makes no sense because I was like they were basically like, hey, you're awesome and you got a 91 ASVAB score and you passed the physical with flying colors, and we think that you're literally like the dream, military candidate, but you have too many vision problems. And I'm like, do you know what I do for a living? I literally shoot guns. I shoot guns
Yeah.
for a living. I do
Hmm.
shoot guns. Like I can see just fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But it wasn't, and I was going to go, I was either going to do emergency management or aerospace medicine.
Hmm.
And some of the gear that you have to wear for both of those actually impedes your peripheral vision anyway.
Yeah. So it doesn't
I didn't
matter.
really get it. Yeah. So, and then another reason is because my grandfather wrote our family history book with 4 of his cousins. So we have a history book like this thick
Hmm.
of our family history. And it's kind of very like Godfather-esque because, it goes over the 5 families. We're Italian.
Hmm.
It's like
Yep.
but I didn't read it until I was 32. And when I was 32, I discovered that everyone in my family, that on my grandmother's side, because my grandmother was born in America and she's actually Native American
Hmm.
and from Wisconsin. So everybody in my family on her side since the Civil and Revolutionary Wars has served,
Hmm.
somebody in every generation. And so it would have ended with mine.
Yeah.
Would have ended with mine. And so that was kind of a resurgence of me wanting to serve in some way. So went back and tried to get in Air Guard, and they wouldn't take me for the same reason. So I was super bummed out. And so was my recruiter because, she was like, we don't really get a lot of candidates that are this well-rounded.
Hmm.
And, but I was also older, at the time. And so, sometimes when you're older, you have your shit together a little bit more.
Hmm.
And so she was bummed. Well, then she called me back about 9 or 10 months later and said, hey, Texas has a state military.
Hmm.
And here's the good news. They don't care about your peripheral vision and they can't send you to Fallujah. So that's, that's the
That's a
good news.
plus. Hmm.
Yeah. So I enlisted at 37. I was at the tail end of 37. And then I was sworn in when I was 38.
Hmm. Awesome.
And so I belong to Governor Greg Abbott. I do not belong to President Biden.
Hmm.
And I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, can you explain that a little bit? Because I know a lot of people may not understand how there's a Texas National Guard, there's the Texas like Air Guard, and then there's the Texas State Guard. Those are like the branches within Texas. So how are they delineated? I think the Air Guard is pretty obvious how that is, but between like the National Guard and the Texas State Guard, because obviously National Guard can get called up by the DOD and all that stuff, but State Guard's a little bit different.
So in Texas, and there are other states that have State Guard as well.
Yeah.
I believe Tennessee has one too, just as an example. But in Texas, we have what's called TMD, which is Texas Military Department. And it has 3 branches. Okay. So, so your active duty federal military doesn't fall into TMD. Okay. So if you're a full-time Marine, full-time Army, full-time Navy, you're not in TMD. You're something totally different. So TMD is the reservist section. Okay. So in TMD, you have the Army National Guard, which is the reserves for the federal Army. And then you have the Air Guard, which is the reserves for the Air Force. Okay. And then you have TXSG, which is Texas State Guard. And the difference is the other two branches belong to the federal government. Now, how it's supposed to work is if President Biden needed the Air Guard or the Army for something, he needed to send them over to Fallujah or he needed to send them somewhere, he would have to ask Governor Abbott, and Governor Abbott would release them to President Biden, and now President Biden is their commander. Okay. State Guard, you really can't do that because we only belong to Texas. So Governor Abbott is our commander in chief all day long.
Yeah.
Okay. So we usually deal with things in Texas. So we're more of a humanitarian force, but we kind of go in between. Like we can help out. Like if we have certain credentials, if we're TCOL certified or we're level 3 or 4 private security, we can supplement law enforcement in certain situations.
Okay.
Or they can militarize us and we can go down to the border.
Okay.
Okay. But for the most part, we are a humanitarian force and we help with things like hurricanes, floods, fires. So we were deployed for Snowmageddon, making sure people got food, making sure people had shelter, making sure people had water and all that kind of stuff. So we do a lot of that stuff. Now, sometimes they'll send us out of state for stuff like Texas State Guard was actually first boots on the ground for Katrina. For
Wow. Okay.
Right, because the National Guard couldn't mobilize fast enough. So we were there setting up shelters, evacuating people through our through our ETN system, which is we can put bracelets on people, and when we put the same trackers on their luggage and their pets and stuff, and so that we can track them if they get lost. We can reunite them, we can find them. So we were first boots on the ground, and then when National Guard got there, we worked in tandem.
Okay.
With them too. I wasn't enlisted at the time, but I read about, what we did down there. So sometimes with special permissions, we'll go to different states and help out with stuff too.
Okay. Gotcha. What was I going to say? What so far has the State Guard done, along the border? Because, the way that the media always reports things, they always talk about Texas National Guard, and you can tell that they broadly are not being specific about what they're talking about, whether it's the National Guard or not. So I was wondering what's actually going on there and who's actually, Abbott is having, along the border to kind of supplement what the feds are basically not doing at this point.
Well, obviously for operational security or OPSEC, I'm very limited on what I can say on that. And I'm also not public affairs. So, I'm in RTU, which is the Retention and Training Unit. So I train people that are coming into the State Guard. And then when they go to their line units, they're they like some people will go into an engineering line unit where, they're helping build bridges and helping repair things. And some people go into search and rescue unit, right? So then they might get deployed to the border. So I'm training them, on that. And then I'm also the 1st Brigade adjunct to the Governor's 20, which is the shooting competition between all the military branches.
Oh, cool.
So, so I have a couple of different, jobs that I do. But what I can say is that Texas State Guard helps in many facets down there. Anything from IT, right? Because we've got cameras along the border. So anything from IT to search and rescue, we are helping with.
Cool.
So we have very specific. So when you're going in State Guard, typically you're being recruited for what you already do in your civilian life. So if you're a security professional, you're recruited for that. If you're an engineer, you're recruited for that. If you're in medical, like you're a doctor or a nurse or a EMT, you're recruited for that. So we've got medical professionals down at the border helping out with stuff. We have search and rescue, both land and boat. Search and rescue down there, supplementing and helping out with the National Guard and Border Patrol. And, so multiple ways. That we're helping down there, but I can't really give a lot more detail.
Sure. No. Now, as far as the State Guard, does it work kind of like how the National Guard does, where is it a full part-time force, or do they have full and part-time elements of the force, within it? So like, how does that work?
Yeah. So we're considered a volunteer force. So we do get paid for deployments just like any other branch of the military would. But we we volunteer for drills. We volunteer for training. Because like I said, most of us have, really decent civilian jobs. But we are protected by law, just like just like federal military is.
Okay.
Right. So we can't like lose our jobs if we get deployed, or, our employer has to respect our drill weekends, all that kind of stuff. Because we get orders just like federal military. So we're considered guardsmen.
Yeah.
But we use an army ranking system.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So yeah, there's like Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, all that kind of stuff, and then there's Guard.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how that works. And we are so we're just extremely multifaceted. So you're usually, and what I love about the Texas State Guard is even though you're recruited for what you do in your civilian specialty, it's very easy for you to train for other units or other companies or other battalions, so that you can pick up extra ways to be deployable.
Cool.
So like I have like 3
cool
ways that I can deploy. So
that's awesome. What's the Governor's 20? You mentioned that earlier, the competition. So.
Oh God, it's so awesome. So I'll tell you about it, and then this is actually one of my 2024, 2025 goals.
Oh, all right, let's hear.
And I'll explain the reason why it falls into kind of 2 years. So the Governor's 20 is the shooting competition between the military branches, and there's 4 different competitions: pistol, rifle, full auto, and sniper. Okay. And so there's 2 so every year the top 2 shooters from sniper, the top 2 shooters from full auto, and the top 8 shooters from pistol and rifle make up the Governor's 20. Okay. So all of those champions, they get opportunities to go and shoot and get paid to shoot throughout the next year.
Oh, that's cool.
And they get the bragging rights, and you get to wear a really cool patch on your uniform that you wouldn't normally get to wear. And it's very, very sought after recognition. The only female in the history of the military that has ever tabbed in the Governor's 20 was an Air Force female who tabbed in sniper. Okay. So no female has ever won this competition outside of that. Okay. Yeah. So my goal is to tab in either pistol or rifle. So this is going to be my 3rd year, Pete. So the first year now you have to be like the top 100, right?
Yeah.
To even go, right? They only have like 100 spots. And so the first year that I competed, I had no idea what to expect. So you go to a clinic the year before where you can qualify, right? It's usually held in December.
Okay.
And then pistol and rifle is in January and February, and then the other 2 competitions are in the fall. So went to the clinic my first year, and then I competed in pistol that January and came in like 65th. Okay. So not bad for your first year out of 100 shooters, but you have to understand these are like the best shooters in the state. Yeah. Right. In the military. Right. It's kind of wild. And then this year when I competed in January, I came in 41st.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
So jumped up some spots. And so now that I know, but the thing is they change up the courses of fire every year. So
nice.
It's really hard for you to practice for exactly, what they're doing. And so one competition that they had this year that they didn't have last year was they made you run 50 yards one way. So you had to put your magazine down on the table, right?
Okay.
And holster your gun. And then you had to run down 50 yards, pick up your magazine, run back 50 yards, stop in the square, and then you had to load up your gun and burn down 6 steel that were 15 yards away.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you were not only timed on that, but you got extra points if you burned down all the steel, and then you got more extra points if you had any rounds left over.
Wow.
So so I broke my toe 2 days before
oh man.
I was supposed to do this. And the first year they didn't have any running competitions.
Mm-hmm. So you're just like, whatever, yeah.
So I was like, no problem. I'm just gonna, I mean, if it was painful to walk around, but I wasn't gonna have to run. So I knew I was gonna lose time running. So I was like, I gotta burn down all the steel and have rounds left over. And so on that particular match, I actually did pretty good, because I just really concentrated on burning down the steel, and there wasn't very many people that did that.
Yeah,
were able to do that. So it's super fun. You get to meet some really cool people. It's weird because I'm usually the only female there competing, but I'm typically treated very well.
Yeah.
So.
How many courses of fire do they usually make you run? Like, how is it like,
It's
like
2 days.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Worth of shooting. So you're probably shooting 10 different matches.
Okay.
Throughout that weekend. And then if you're federal military, you shoot an extra match because you get what's called leg points.
Okay.
That go toward marksmanship ribbons in the federal military. State Guard doesn't have that.
Oh, that's kind of cool though.
But they'll let you shoot it anyway, just to get the extra practice. So
cool. What are
it's an incredible competition. I love it.
What do they usually have you? What do you use there? Like just an M4 and like is it either a Glock or an M17 at this point? Like
no, you got it. Yeah, you got.
What do you
can
use?
only shoot what's issued to the military. So if you're doing rifle, it has to be M4, M4A1, and then if you're doing pistol, you can do an M17, M18, or M9.
Okay.
Now I chose the 17 because I don't like. Okay. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and I don't care. I don't like the Beretta.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Sure.
And the reason that I don't like it is because, and I want to know who was in the room talking about the design of this gun, throwing out ideas, and then one, dude in the room was like, why don't we have a safety where you have to just go like that? Like, we should do that. That's a great idea. And everybody in the room was like, that's an awesome idea. We should do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the point of it. It's not ergonomic. It's not comfortable. It's really hard for you to pull and punch that off at the same time. Like your safety should go like this.
Yeah.
Like that's the natural way that you're coming out of the holster. And that's the primary reason why I didn't choose to run that platform.
Yeah, I always that safety has always driven me crazy now that you think about it. And especially like when you go from like the 45. So you had like the M45, the 1911 the military had forever, and then they go to the Beretta. It just kind of doesn't make any sense that they went from like the most ergonomic safety you can get to like the freaking M9.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to know how incredibly inefficient the military actually is, there's a really great episode that just came out. Patrick Bet David on the PBD podcast this last week just interviewed Eric Prince, who
yes, I saw some of that. Yeah, I saw some of that.
And he'll tell you how inefficient the military decision making is and how much it costs American taxpayers. So, it's literally like one hand isn't talking to the other. We see a little bit of that in the State Guard, but it's not nearly as bad.
Sure.
Because we're still, private citizens and this isn't our main job. And so sometimes we'll bring, some common sense and some business acumen, into this. But yeah, I mean, just, it doesn't, so that right there is a really great example of why would you change to the Beretta? Because in the military, you have to run your gun on a safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a civilian, I don't have to, and I don't.
No.
Okay. So, but in the military, you have to. And so it has to be, you have to get rid of it as quickly as possible. And the Beretta just didn't make any sense in that regard.
Yeah. It's just weird. It's weird. It's a really weird one. Look, they shoot nice. I know somebody in the chat's like, I like the Beretta. But I mean, that's how it is, like everything else. Look, there are guys that don't like 1911s and don't like Glocks.
I mean, I hear you. I don't think I can see that chat.
No, you won't see that in here. It's on the YouTube page.
Oh, okay, on the YouTube page, yeah. So, I agree, and I don't mind the way that the Beretta shoots, but you have to understand that that's not the only deciding factor.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, as a civilian, that wouldn't really matter to you if you don't run a safety. Like I don't, right? So if I was looking to carry something like that in my civilian life, I wouldn't really take that into consideration because I don't run a safety. But in the military, when you're required to per regs, that would be a deciding factor for me if I was at that decision-making table.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have been like, this is literally like hanging pictures in the living room while the kitchen's on fire.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that, you know, and that's another reason why, you know, enlisted personnel's opinions are so valid and need to be listened to more by officers in the military, because any enlisted person could have told you that that was a bad idea.
Yep.
But a lot of those officers, they're not in the trenches. They're not carrying guns. They're not going into combat. They're not really doing a lot of that stuff. And so they're really a little out of touch on what that looks like to, you know, the typical sergeant first class, you know, things like that. So I just think that was a terrible idea.
Oh man, that's pretty funny. It's all, Forgotten Man says in the chat, it's all by design. Government takes more money from the taxpayers and they put some of it in their pockets. I mean, it happens too. I mean, there's obviously weird deals that can go on with defense contracts and all that stuff too.
Well, they don't do any price vetting. They
No.
don't do any price vetting.
No.
I mean, you know, even Patrick said, you know, hey, so Patrick was a Hummer mechanic when he was in the Army, and he was like, you know, he's like, hey, I need to, you know, order this part. And it's like a $70 part, but the military's paying $800 for it.
Yeah.
We're footing the bill on that.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And that's probably, you know, I think that if I were in federal military, I would probably have been court-martialed several times because I would have said shit about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have said shit about that. I would have been like, this is really stupid. I don't really understand. Like, how many middlemen do we need to get this shit in line?
Yeah.
You know, I don't really understand, you know, because that no privatized company, no mechanic shop is paying $800 for that part.
No way.
They're smarter than you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the bureaucracy that you have to go through is extremely stupid. I know that's one of the complaints that my old man had. He was in the Navy for 25 years, and then he's worked for the federal government. He's like, yeah, every time that you know, your budget comes around, everybody's just throwing money at stuff like, let's buy chairs, let's buy all these things that we don't need. It's like, because you lose the money, and it's like, why can't the federal government just put that in like a lockbox and gain interest on it and save that money, or keep the surplus? But no, they're not going to do that. They're just going to burn it, basically. That's it.
The military should be able to have a rainy day fund.
Yeah.
They should be able to put that, you know, you budgeted for it, it's in the budget. You know, keep it for next year, because you never know when the prices are going to be inflated based on the administration, based on world happenings. And they're just not, it doesn't make any sense. And that's why people are really pushing to privatize, you know, certain things. And that was Eric Prince's point on the podcast. Is he's like, I privatized overseas security and it worked better.
Yeah.
You know, it worked better. So it is what it is.
Yeah. That was actually interesting. I need to finish that entire episode. I got to the point where, what was it that he was talking about? I guess Patrick asked him about the fracturing of the country and what he kind of like thought about that. And you know, how he thought it would, you know, what could drive people to that kind of split. And I thought Eric gave an answer that I've given before, but it's not the answer that I expected from him. And he was like, well, if you can't decide what a man or a woman are and you can't define that, like, how can you have a country function? I was like, yeah, that's what I've said before, but I was really surprised to hear it coming from him. I thought he was going to go geopolitical on it, but it was pretty basic. So
it's a problem.
It is.
We have a lot of problems. We have a lot of problems right now. And, you know, I'm worried, but I'm prepared.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, what else can you do?
That's all you can do. And that's what I always tell people. I was like, look, you hope for the best and you prepare for the worst. So you choose your friends wisely, and make sure you have a good network of people around you, because you never know what's going to happen. You know,
you gotta have a plan.
Now I did see, and I kind of wanted to pivot here a little bit. I saw on your Twitter page, you had mentioned, and I had not seen this, about, because a few weeks ago I did kind of like the vice presidential power rankings for Trump. And, you know, I had, you know, the usual suspects, Vivek and all that stuff. Even DeSantis was still up there. And my dark horse pick was Tulsi. And I saw that you'd posted, you know, Tulsi has always been, at least in the gun community, always one of this, like, man, we're scared of her because we don't really know how she feels about things. So I saw you'd posted a Substack article that she had about kind of how her views in the Second Amendment have changed and how it's shifted. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and how you kind of feel about Tulsi and her evolution there.
My biggest complaint about her was the Second Amendment thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take an opportunity to Google, how does Tulsi Gabbard feel about the Second Amendment? Her Substack article that she wrote it within the last year or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She has made an evolution.
Yep.
A lot of people gave her shit, including myself for a second until I found that article about her, competing in the tactical games. And, she is a very, very fascinating person in general.
Mm-hmm.
She's accomplished a lot. She's very, very intelligent. It's just from a society standpoint, she was influenced because, and she even says it in the Substack. She's like, in the beginning, it made sense to me. Like, why wouldn't we put regulations on guns? Like, they're dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't we require background checks? Why? And let me stop right there and just say something. Like, let's face it. Background checks aren't going away.
No.
Okay. And this is the point that Second Amendment absolutists and free Americans have been trying to make for a long time. What we let in, we will never get rid of.
Yeah, that's pretty much true.
That's
Yeah.
the point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we've allowed background checks. They're never going to go away. Okay. Now you say, well, what's the problem with background checks? Well, the issue with background checks is that my biggest problem with background checks is they are subject to human error.
Mm-hmm.
Right. One time when I was in my 20s, I got pulled over for a broken taillight. And when the officer ran my license, he came back and said, hey, I think we have a problem here. I need you to step out of the car. I was like, sure, what's the problem? And he was like, I want you to look and see what comes up on my computer when I run your license. And he did it for me again. And it came up so I was 25 or 26 at the time. It came up as a 34-year-old African-American man with 7 warrants. Okay. So it took me 6 months. 6 months.
Wow.
To work that out with the DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the driver license division. Okay. So these things are subject to human error. So if something accidentally gets on your background check, and this happened, there was an issue a few years ago with a military person who went and bought a gun, and he was legally not supposed to be able to because of the way that he was discharged and court-martialed and all that stuff. And guess what? The military never put that shit on his record.
No, they didn't.
So he was able to go and legally buy a gun when he wasn't supposed to. So these are the things that bother me.
Yep.
Okay? But we have them, and they're not going away. So here we are. Now, what she has done is she has seen the effects of politicians trying to busy themselves doing something about the issues that we're having with guns right now, which really isn't a gun issue. It's a mental health issue.
Yep.
And people think that that's a tired argument, but it's true. Okay. We didn't have these issues. You could literally get guns in the mail from the freaking Sears catalog.
Yep.
Right. And nobody was getting shot. There were no mass shootings. There was like one.
Yep.
Okay.
Used to be able to buy machine guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this wasn't a problem. And if you look at, there's a really, really great podcast that I just watched between Glenn Beck and Pastor Josh McPherson from, he has a church in Washington State.
Okay.
He sued the state of Washington during COVID for their lockdown procedures and saying people couldn't go to church. And he did it as a civilian, not a pastor or a church, because he was like, if I sue them as a church, only I win. I want everybody to win because this is more than just people being able to go to church. Okay? Yeah. But he goes through the 3 epochs of time where we started to downfall in our mental health. So you really need to watch that because it's a really good explanation on exactly when all this started to go downhill. So now we have this mental health problem, which means that people need to be armed now more than ever. Okay, because no matter what laws you put into place, because laws, we need laws. Laws are not going to protect you. A law is a written consequence for something that society deems wrong. So it doesn't create a magical force field around all the people that aren't supposed to have guns.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't keep them from getting them either, because criminals are really hip to the law. And you don't think they are, but they are. I did private security for a long time. And when you're in private security, you can only arrest people for felonies that happen in your purview. If you're an actual law enforcement officer, you can arrest people for misdemeanors and things that don't happen in your purview. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So people got really hip to the fact that we couldn't arrest them unless it was a felony that we saw. So they would commit misdemeanors in front of us all the time. If you think buying guns are any different, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
A criminal who's hip to the law is not going to go into a gun store where he's going to get a background check on himself or herself and buy a gun. They know better.
Yep.
They know better. And then now we have people committing crimes with guns and doing mass shootings that never had a record. How do you explain that?
Yep.
You got to start somewhere. Well, guess what? They're going big or going home.
Yep.
So now what are you going to do about it? Oh, well, now we have to have wait times, okay? Like cool off periods. Okay, well, that doesn't help the gal that got raped or the domestic violence victim that called the cops on her violent ex who's going to get out on bail in 3 days, protect our kids. If you have a 5-day waiting period, you have to think about this. So anytime that you think about passing a law or writing a bill or whatever, you can't think of it as if it would be executed seamlessly. That never happens.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think of the worst case scenario and who's going to be affected if it goes wrong. So these waiting periods that you want, these cool off periods that you want, that's affecting the domestic violence victim and the rape victim. That's what they're doing. And guess what? There's a lot more women that are raped every year than people who are killed in mass shootings.
Yep.
Like by a large margin.
Absolutely.
Okay? So that's the reason that this stuff doesn't work. But I'll tell you what does work. Education works. Okay. But nobody's willing, no politicians are willing to go into poverty-stricken communities and put, self-defense programs, free, educational self-defense programs, so that these people learn good mindset. So that these people understand when you're supposed to use self-defense and when you're supposed to use weapons. Like, that's the things that were instilled in me and kids like me when we were little. And that's why we didn't grow up to be assholes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So that's how this works. You have to educate. Diana Mueller says it all the time. You have to educate before you legislate. If you haven't educated, there's no legislation needed. Okay. You got to go and do that thing first. So I think that Tulsi Gabbard had an incredible revolution by witnessing in real time and paying attention to and being brave enough to acknowledge that these laws didn't work. They didn't move the needle. So why would we do it? So take a moment, go read her Substack. She goes into great detail. She admits her fault. She was like, I didn't see any problem with common sense gun laws. I mean, why wouldn't we want them? But she wasn't understanding how people were getting guns and how criminals were using guns and how they were obtaining them. There's always a black market for that stuff. So I'm very proud of her for coming full circle to a degree. I mean, I don't know if she's come full circle, okay? But she's a ton better than she was, and I think it can only get better from here. So I'm a fan of Tulsi for the most part. Do I think I'm going to agree with her on everything? No. Is she still left leaning on some things that I might not be left leaning about? Sure. But I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm an independent thinker. I'm a libertarian, right? So I got no problem with, and that's another thing I'm loving to see. I'm loving to see the divorce in the LGBTQ community. Like, I'm loving seeing gay people go, I'm not a T. I'm not doing that.
Yep, that's true.
We're not doing that, right? I'm loving seeing that. So people are getting their own identities in politics, and they're standing up for, people are starting to stand up for things that are right, and I like that. So, you don't have to vote for Tulsi if she ran for anything, but I do think that you need to see and acknowledge the public comment that she made on how she was wrong initially about the Second Amendment, and that she may have had an elitist view. Yep.
No, I think that's absolutely true. And I think, we have to give people room for change, because I think what's happened in this, everything has gotten so polarized that sometimes once somebody has gone to one side or the other, that's it. Like, they're dead. Like, that's how people treat them. Like, this person is dead to me. They're irredeemable. almost. It's almost like the deplorables comment that Hillary made years ago. Like, that's it, you're done. Like you've been cast into hell and you can never come back. And I feel like that's how people treat people, and you need to give people room for, hey, you know what? I didn't know, or I was wrong. And
well, we've all done it.
Yeah.
We just all haven't admitted it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you should have seen in my years, my early life, in my late teen years and early, 20s, you should have seen some of the things that I said about the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that I didn't have Black friends,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't that I didn't have a respect for, a Black stranger, that would walk up to me, but I would bash their culture all the time,
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, they're doing, like a lot of these people are just raising heathens, right? And still, I'm serious, and I have no problem in admitting it, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until I really got, I think that I had a really slow evolution through my 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I met Kevin Dixie, my whole world changed.
Yep.
Because he took me to the hood.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Are you scared?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I'm not like overly joyous about it. Like, I mean, I don't want to get hurt or killed." And he was like, "Well, you're going with me, so the likelihood of that is low." He was like, "But you really need to see what we're talking about so that you can really understand." And we went to the hood.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked to people, and he showed me that the cemetery was bigger than the neighborhood. And he showed me that it was a food desert, and there
Yep.
were no places for people to get healthy food. The schools sucked.
Yep.
Nobody ever went there and helped, like, educate people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about pouring a bunch of money, right, into that community just because, right? But we're talking about educating people on how you're supposed to live and how to deal with your money, and, having programs for kids that keep kids busy so they don't join gangs.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about that stuff, right? And he was like, and there was a guy that he told me about. He was like, I was talking to a guy one time and in this neighborhood, and he didn't think that he could own a gun because he was Black.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that was the law.
Yep. It's crazy.
And nobody corrected him.
Yep.
Right? Nobody corrected him. So my whole world changed. I've been meeting Maj Toure and doing teaching a Black Guns Matter class with Maj Toure, and hearing some of the questions that they have, like understanding better the Black community and how they're raised in some cases,
Mm-hmm.
not all of them, right? But how they're raised in some cases, like they don't know any better. Like they're a victim of generational bullshit.
Yeah. Yep.
Is really what they are. And so that's the answer to those communities as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Maj Toure's doing a great job in Philly with that. As a matter of fact, he caught a case
Awesome. Yeah.
recently for carrying without a license.
I remember that. Yeah.
And that is
It's crazy.
who gives a shit? I mean, that's your right as a human being
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have, tools to defend yourself. So good for him. And I hope that he wins that case, because there's no reason why he shouldn't, or why he should have to pay a tax on that right. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, we're just, this is something that we're just going to continually have to fight for. And it's not going to be pretty. And I think we're going to regress, a little bit. And then I think there's going to be a resurgence of the love of freedom.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. I think we've been seeing it a little bit more and more, because I think a lot of, it's interesting, I've been seeing a lot of poll numbers with Gen Z, and, everybody always thinks it's like, oh man, the younger generations, they always get worse. Like they have less appreciation. And Gen Z, I think, has been kind of, because millennials, I think millennials caused a lot of problems, but there's like a big divide between, I guess I'm an old millennial, I'm 37, and like younger millennials that are like 6 or 7 years younger than me. For some reason, there's like this big divide. I don't know what caused it. I think it was like the post, like Facebook split or something. But they were saying that, Gen Z is a little bit more based, because they're like, they went through the lockdowns. They saw a lot of bullshit. They've seen the government lie. They've seen, millennials go through the bull crap of like, well, if you get a college degree, it doesn't matter what it is, even basket weaving, you're going to get a good job. And how like all that was BS, and they've seen it. So Gen Z's finally seeing like the result of like, wait a second, these like last 3 generations before us all got lied to about stuff. maybe we shouldn't do the same thing. Maybe we should think a little bit more. It doesn't mean like it's a huge percentage of Gen Z, but you're already starting to see that kind of pendulum shift. But unfortunately, is that too late? Is it because it's gone so extreme that people are starting to see this now? And I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out during this election cycle how much of a shift there is. But
there's a lot of damage that has already been done, and I'll tell you, this election worries me.
Mm-hmm.
It worries me a lot because no matter what we do,
Mm-hmm.
It's somebody's going to be mad.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's going to be a peaceful transition of power
Mm-hmm.
this election. I don't know if we'll even have an election.
Oh, you got into that point?
Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many things that could happen between now and November.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, and look, let's be honest here. I don't like Trump.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I never have enjoyed his personality.
Mm-hmm.
But, and would I vote for someone else given the opportunity? Yes. But not anybody that the left is bringing to the table.
Yeah.
RFK has said some things I like, and I don't think that he's a bad person at all.
Sure.
But I do think that his stance he has not proven to me that he's changed his stance on the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
He's walked back his comments about the NRA being a terrorist organization, and said that, if he said that, he didn't recall it, and that's not what he thinks, and all of this. But he hasn't convinced me that he stands firm on the Second Amendment. Neither has Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For that matter. And God, I long for a candidate that believes wholeheartedly, in the Second Amendment, and would really take on the establishment in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
If you gave me Biden and Trump again, I'm voting for Trump. I'm not voting for Biden at all.
Absolutely.
Like, there's nothing that could make me do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's just not. And, and if you're an absolute anti-Trumper, and you're going to try to convince me that he's not the better option of the two, you're just not going to be able to do that. I had more money when Trump was in office. The economy was better when Trump was in office. I wasn't paying for someone else's war when Trump was in office. Like, all of those things are really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's going to be interesting to see, how this all happens. I've met Nikki Haley. That doesn't mean I know her. Was she
Sure.
nice and polite? Sure. But I don't like that. I think she just comes across to me as holier than thou.
Mm.
And I don't like that. I think that I do think that she is prone to war, and I don't want that either.
Yep.
Unless we absolutely have to do it. And so they're not bringing me any good candidates. I mean, Vivek, I liked him. He said a lot of things I liked. I actually spent some time with him in Las Vegas not too long ago. He came and spoke at a conference I was at. And he was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, put on a great speech, really seems to love America, is the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have a problem with him at all. So I just don't, I feel like the better candidates have already left the race.
Yeah, I like Vivek a lot. I think Vivek is the only politician that I've ever seen in the United States, at least, because as much as I hate to admit it, it seems like some foreign politicians know their history. Vivek is able to articulate the Constitution very well, explain everything, talk about historical consequences, articulate in a way that normal people can understand it, even though he himself is extremely intelligent. When he was on the Breakfast Club, I thought that he just completely dominated that situation, and he does it in such a way that he almost has a lot of empathy. It's very almost, even though he's so young, it's very fatherly the way that he does things, because when he runs into opposition, he's almost like, hey, you're protesting, like, come inside the town hall meeting, like, come check it out, like, see what this is all about. And people are just like, Who is this guy? Like, he's being like, no, I'll help you bring your stuff in. Like, you know, he did things like that. And I think it was very effective. And I think he's kind of the young, like, leader that we need, because I think we do need an infusion of youth here for sure in the political spectrum. Yeah.
I think so too. I would have voted for DeSantis.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think out of everyone, I think I would have voted for DeSantis.
Yeah.
If he stayed in the race. But he didn't.
His campaign was bad.
His campaign was terrible.
Yeah, his campaign was bad.
He thought that he could run off of the momentum of the victories that he had in Florida as governor. And you can't do that. So if I were him, I would fire my entire marketing team.
Yeah.
Before the next election and go over again. Like, his book release was like ridiculous. You know, he was like, well, I had the best selling book for 4 weeks. It should have been 14 weeks. But your marketing team timed it so shittily that it didn't need to be released then. You know, he should have waited, I think, like 1 more month to do it so that it coincided with some better things. But you know, all of that comes into play.
Yep.
I mean, you have to have the best marketing people. You're running your ass off. He didn't do a ton of interviews. He didn't do a ton of podcasts. Like, if you're not doing podcasts as a politician, you're missing out. That's why that's a big reason why Nikki Haley's losing.
Yep.
Because Vivek did every podcast.
Yep.
He did so many podcasts, and because that's how the younger generation is getting their news now. I don't give a shit about CNN.
Nope.
I don't give a shit about MSNBC. We want to see you go sit down with Patrick Bet-David and Lewis Howes, and we want to see you we want you to go sit down with Sean Ryan.
Yep.
Okay, because we have questions. Those people are going to ask the questions that the reporters are afraid to ask.
Yep.
Okay, and if you're willing to answer them, Vivek was willing to do it, and that's one of the reasons why I liked him so much.
Yep. No, I agree. That is what made him awesome. And honestly, like, people need to pay attention to that and embrace it, because I feel like even though they might look at his percentage in the Iowa caucuses and be like, well, you know, he still finished like 4th in that race. And I was like, no, I still think it was a masterclass, because he took himself from being a person that nobody knew. Nobody knew who the hell Vivek Ramaswamy was before all this, to elevating himself to now a lot of people are like, he's the one that he should be Trump's top choice for VP. At least I think so, because I think he's already been proven to be a team player. You know, the day after he dropped out, he's at a Trump rally there, and he's articulating MAGA better than Trump can articulate his own policies. That's the funny part about him. So I'm like, bring this guy in. Use him as an untraditional VP, because typically VPs don't really do anything, let's be honest, but use him as like your PR guy, your attack dog almost, to articulate your policies while you deal with the onslaught that's going to happen if you become president, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be an onslaught from the bureaucratic state, I think.
I think he'll either go Tulsi or Vivek.
Yeah.
And either one of them would be a smart choice, because they're both alpha enough to tell him, bro, stop. Okay. Like, I think I have a suggestion here. They're both confident enough to do that. And I think that they're both very good at negotiating, very good at explaining, very articulate. Like, so, and you can't go wrong with either one of them, because, you know, in this day and age where you have to check all the boxes, right? They're both minorities.
Yeah, it's
right?
true. Yeah.
And I think it's just going to be really, really interesting. But, you know, they want to break Trump. They want to financially break Trump, because they know his freedom lies in his wealth. His freedom lies in his wealth. And they would do the same thing to Vivek too.
Oh yeah.
They would try to break him financially. I mean, they only gave him a week. They only gave Trump a week to pay this freaking dumpster banshee that said he sexually assaulted her. And then, I'm sorry, but her television interviews show that she is a liar.
Yeah, she seems pretty bat crazy. That's for sure. When you watch,
talking about all the shit she's gonna buy with his money. Like, this was a complete witch hunt in that regard. Now, do I think that Trump's never done anything awful?
Yeah, of course not. Yeah.
So I just don't think that she's the one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, I don't know. I don't know for sure. I can't say for sure, but I can tell you that the way that she is behaving now that the settlement has been reached, or now that the verdict rather has been reached, is very off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
It's very off-putting.
Yeah. Everything that we've seen with all that, and that's usually what I tell people. It's like, look, I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I abstained from that. Obviously, I didn't vote for Hillary, but I was like, because I was like, this guy's been a Democrat his entire life. I was like, I thought he was like a Trojan horse. Like, we just have two Democrats running essentially. And Trump is like, he's just going to be a Democrat when he's in there. Then he proved through his actions and through his presidency. I was like, okay, so he's legit. I agree with a lot of the things he did, especially foreign policy wise. Obviously, Second Amendment was not great, but whatever. I haven't seen a Republican do a great job in the Second Amendment in a long time. So not in my lifetime anyway, unfortunately. So I just think you see how hard they've gone after him. And as somebody that was friends with all these people, like, let's be honest, everybody loved Donald Trump in the 80s and 90s. He was a celebrity businessman. He was everywhere. Everybody wanted to be on The Apprentice back in the day. And then all of a sudden it's like, now you're trying to throw this guy under the bus when he was one of you. Like, he was one of the elites running around schmoozing with all you guys, going to your parties and all that stuff. And that just kind of told you, I was like, he started exposing them, because I think he didn't even do it on purpose. He was trying to, like, basically run around these landmines that they're throwing on him with the Russian collusion, the impeachments, all the BS that they threw at him. So he's basically just trying to survive here. But by them going so crazy, it just kind of showed, like, why would they do this unless it was true that they were this corrupt? And it's like, because I almost feel like the left, Trump is very willing to work with people. He is, for better or for worse. Sometimes it drives me crazy. But Trump has kind of proven, like, if you're nice to him and you ingratiate yourself towards him, like, he'll work with you. So I don't know. I feel like the Democratic Party could have easily been like, all right, Trump, like, we'll let you build some of the border wall, but you have to allow us to get like a certain number of, you got to do the Dreamers deal or allow more illegals in per year, do all this stuff. And maybe Trump would have negotiated that, but they went for the jugular from the start. And that just kind of like told me, I was like, there's something up here.
Well, and they would be giving up control.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. You know, it's because people who are a little bit more right-leaning or are in the independent mode, they're not going to put up with shit like boys pretending to be girls.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're not as easy to brainwash.
Yeah.
When you don't put up with that shit. And so the people on the left who want power want people that are easily brainwashed, right? Illegal immigrants coming into the country that, you know, then they're so thankful, you know, and they have to be beholden to you now. You know, and the Democratic Party has just become the party of chaos. And it's just mutated.
Yeah.
Badly. You know, it's not the JFK Democrats.
No.
More, which were essentially libertarians.
In a lot of ways, yeah, it was.
So,
yeah.
It's going to be really interesting this next election cycle. And, you know, I would tell you, don't get paranoid, but get prepared.
Yeah.
You know, get your go back set up, get some ammo, get some guns if you don't have them. If you do, practice. And, you know, and just have a plan, because you don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. And this election is just a few short months away.
Yeah, no, it's true. It is. It's true. I wonder how it's all going to play out in the end, because I feel like the runway is running out for, you know, the establishment, the powers that be, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, it seems like every time, like, Trump, either they may get him financially, but they can't get him the way that they really want him. And it seems like he keeps skirting. So if the Supreme Court like makes that decision, it's like, no, you can't go after him for this. He was president at the time, and it doesn't matter. There's There's no insurrection charge here, so we don't see what's going on. You guys impeached him already, so that's your mechanism to deal with the president. You impeached him, you couldn't charge him, so I don't understand why we have to look at this case at this point. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think the sooner that happens, it's going to be very difficult for the left, because then they're going to have months where they have to stew with this, and they're like, well, all the court cases have failed. Like, we can't stop him from running now. Like, it's done.
I mean, it's exactly like the ATF.
Yeah.
Every new rule they come up with gets squashed in court.
Yep.
Why do you even continue to try this?
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm wondering what they're going to throw out. That's what I'm wondering. Like, what will be the next thing that they put out there, that they try to do? You know, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So.
Well, we'll watch and see. We'll watch and see for sure.
I know it's absolutely crazy. Everything that we've been seeing when it comes to that. What else was I going to ask you? As far as what is it with the gun community, and you've been in the industry for longer than I have at this point. That why is it that we always have cigars and whiskey? What is it that, how did this occur? What had happened to this? How did you get into this and become like my go-to person, that if I'm somewhere, I'm like, I'm going to have this beverage or I'm going to have this food and I need to know what cigar to pair it with, I'm going to call Jerah. How did this happen? How did you become the go-to person for all this?
I got into cigars out of survival, and I got into whiskey because I was getting fat. When I was in my early 20s, I worked for an oil and gas company, and the only way that any of the guys would even give me the time of day or talk to me or even work with me was, if I hunted, which I already did that, right? That, and if I smoked cigars and drank whiskey. So I got into that, the cigar part, out of, just needing to find a way to fit in at work. It's that industry back then especially was definitely a good old boys game. And then I actually I used to be really into craft beer. But God, it makes you fat. It makes you so fat. And so I was dating a guy back in 2015 that was like, try this bourbon, right? And it was really good. And I'm from East Texas, like we drink Jack Daniels and Crown Royal, right? It's not that great. You have to mix it with something. It's actually pretty disgusting. But he had this incredible collection, and so I got to try all of these wonderful bourbons and whiskeys. And so then I just started collecting it on my own. And it's actually a great conversation starter. It's really it's amazing at building relationships.
Sure.
I've never had a difficult conversation with someone over a cigar and it escalate.
That's true.
Like,
that is true.
Something about people that enjoy cigars that just brings civility into the conversation. That's what I've seen. And I've been smoking cigars for almost 20 years now. And I've never gotten into a argument with someone, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, discussion, yes. Disagreement, sure, right? But it's never escalated to the point where we're calling each other names and, any of that stuff. And I think that another reason for that is smoking a cigar is something that you have to do with another person in person. Yeah. Like, it's something you share in person. And just as well as I do that you got a lot of keyboard warriors, but when you get face to face, it's a whole different scenario. Oh yeah. Everybody's so much more polite, right? Like when you're face to face.
Of course.
So I think that's how, and why the gun community, a lot of people in the gun community enjoy those things. Is because for the most part, I think people in the gun community are civil. Yep. They don't want to do this. They don't want to they want to go shoot clays on the weekends and go shoot steel with their pistols and shit. Like, they don't want to go in a civil war. They don't want that. Nope. So I think that's a reason why they kind of centers around that. But I would like to, with the time that we have left, I'd like to talk a little bit about the human trafficking work
Absolutely. Yep.
that we're doing. And it's not just with Operation Underground Railroad. I'm working on a project with them right now. We're trying to get a girl named Hope into the United States from Ghana. And here's what happened. Hope was kidnapped by witch doctors when she was less than 2 years old
Oh.
in Ghana. And she was bloodlet for 18 months for their rituals. So if you're unfamiliar with what that means, it means her blood was drained from her body and used in rituals. She was tied up, lived like basically caged for that 18 months. And then when they were finished with her, they threw her in the bushes and left her to die. Someone found her and has been caring for her ever since. But because of that torture, she has developed a myriad of medical issues, including cerebral palsy.
Oh.
So she needs a life-saving spinal surgery that she can get here in the United States. But we have been having Operation Underground Railroad has been having a lot of trouble getting her into the country for it. So we can let all of these illegal immigrants in the southern border, basically no questions asked. But when somebody really needs medical attention because of heinous torture, it becomes a problem. And I was in contact with a person who runs OUR, and he was kind of telling me about this. And I said, well, what do you got to do? What do we got to do to get her here? He said, I'm trying to get a letter. He was like, that they're telling me, I think it's immigration that they were dealing with. They need a letter from a senator or a congressman. I was like, okay, I'll call you tomorrow. I made a phone call to a person who then made a phone call to another person, and Ted Cruz's office was in contact with us within 24 hours.
That is awesome.
So we are on track to get her here. They have to give her the correct visa. She's going to need a surgery. She's going to need aftercare. She's going to have to be here for at least 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
So we're now working on that.
Wow.
And I can't rave enough about this organization and the people who work within it. It's not a big organization. I mean, they only have like 10 employees.
Yep.
Okay. But these people are doing the work, and they're getting these kids that are rescued, because don't forget, Operation Underground Railroad actually goes and gets the kids.
Yep.
Okay.
That was started by Ballard, right? By Tim?
It was.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Now, Tim has had to step down because of some allegations against him.
Yep.
He did the right thing. Stepped away from it. He's dealing with that. Personally, I don't think they're true. At least I've not seen any evidence that they've been true. But they're actually doing a documentary about that. So we're gonna have to see what happens there. But he left it in really good hands. And the organization is still running.
Yep. Awesome.
The way that it needs to. So don't let any of that deter you and think that OUR isn't still doing God's work.
Awesome.
So we're working on that. And then I have my own nonprofit called WADE, which is the Women's Awareness and Defense Endeavor. I've been doing that work since 2019. And what we do is we go in, much like OUR does, we go in and physically take women out of domestically abusive relationships.
Awesome.
And we help them get on their feet. And then when they have had counseling, and their mental health is back to good, we offer them free self-defense and firearms training. Now, we don't buy them guns. They have to do that on their own, but we do train them on those weapons when they do get them. So we hit a milestone this month. We've had our 100th WADE woman.
That's awesome.
And 99 of those women have never gone back to their abuser.
That's fantastic.
So we're doing really cool. We're doing really cool things. I have a really cool story about one of our WADE women.
Of course.
Got a job. I think we rescued her in 2020. She got a job. She's worked her butt off. She's in assisted housing right now. She's a single mom. She has done so well in this company as just at the very, very bottom. She's already been promoted once, and then now they wanted to send her to a training that if she completed and got like the top like 2 or 3% of the class, that she would get another promotion. And if
That's
she got
awesome.
this promotion, she would no longer need assistance.
It's fantastic.
So we did a money raise for her because she had to have somebody watch her kids because this was a 2-week training out of state.
Wow.
So another Wade woman and I watched her kids for 1 week. But then I had to go out of town, and the other gal, like she had things to do. So then we did a little bit of a money raise, and we raised enough money to hire a paid sitter to come in and watch the kids for the next week. She was able to go and do that training. She graduated top 2% in the class, got the promotion, and so now she can get off of government assistance
That's fantastic.
as a single mom.
That is fantastic.
So it's super cool. Like I said, man, I live a blessed life, and I get to do really cool things for people, and I love just like serving these women and serving these kids, and showing them that there's just a better way out there, and that they don't have to get beat up every day. They don't have to they don't have to let perverted men take advantage of their bodies. They can get their minds out of that. They can heal from that, and move on and live amazing lives, and just, man, be on fire for God, be on fire with their testimony, and just show other people that, that this can be done. And so super proud of that. And so if you get a moment, go on Facebook and follow our page, Wade. It's the Women's Awareness and Defense Endeavor. It's at Wade for Women. And then definitely go follow Operation Underground Railroad. Their website is fantastic. They got a lot of really cool merch too. That's super hip. So it's, I think it's ourrescue.org.
Okay.
Definitely give them a follow, man. Pay attention to what they're doing. Because they are the ones that are going and rescuing kids. They're the ones that are getting those kids out of that situation.
That's fantastic. That is awesome. I told the chat before you came on that, and I always say this, I was like, when I grow up, I want to be just like Jerah. That's what I always tell people. Because no, you really are. Like I've always told people, I was like, Jerah is one of those people that you're like a Renaissance woman. Like you do a little bit of everything, and you excel at the things that you do. And you're not afraid to try anything different and to get into really crazy situations, and you do a good job. You're always, every time I talk to you, you're always somewhere across the country. You're in Alaska or something like that. You're doing some firearms instruction or speaking somewhere or learning some new skill that seemingly has nothing to do with firearms, but you somehow bring it in there. And you're like, no, I'm going to help people with their lives, and I'm going to incorporate it with firearms and all this. So,
man, you can incorporate anything into that, man. I have a time management class that I wrote that I brought it out. I didn't even ask. I just started doing it. I just started teaching it in the military. I didn't even ask. I was like, I'm just going to do it.
Nice.
Because so many people wonder, how can I help? What can I do? Well, you need to get your shit together first. Okay. You need to get your time management in order. You need to get your house in order. You need to learn your gun first. Okay. Before you go out and take some NRA class or USCCA class to become an instructor. Okay. That bothers the shit out of me. You don't get to take one NRA class and then say, I'm an instructor. Okay. You need to get some hours under your belt. Really learn, get your time in, pay your dues and learn. But then you need to find something that you are absolutely on fire for. And for me, it's kids, it's human trafficking, and it's women that get the shit beat out of them. Okay. I don't like that shit. And so that's what I'm on fire for. And then you need to quit thinking that you need all this rest and that you got to take a nap and that you got to have time to relax all the time. You need to get your ass as soon as you leave work. You better be doing something. You need to be doing something that brings people joy, serves the community, or makes you money. Okay, that's how you should be living your life. When you go to bed, you should be tired. You should be exhausted from the day. You should be exhausted because you put 100% into work. You should be exhausted because you spent quality time with your kids and your spouse. You should be exhausted because you spent an hour or two doing something for your community. Guess what? You can fit all that shit into your day. Absolutely, you can. Okay. So this whole like Netflix and chill shit, fuck that. Fuck it all. Okay. You don't need to be sitting around watching TV all day. You need to be going and doing shit that is on fire for your community and the people around you. How do I know? Man, I've spent time with some of the greatest people on earth. I've seen how I've been to Patrick Bet David's house.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen how he lives his life. I've met his kids. I know his wife. I'm friends with his wife.
Yep.
Like I see how he lives his life. And it's about quality of time and not quantity of time. Anytime somebody tells me I don't have time to train with my gun or I don't have time to go to the gym and that's why I'm fat, yes, you do, bitch. You do. Okay. You just don't want to because
Mhm.
it requires work.
Mhm.
And that's your problem. Okay. You need to get up an hour earlier. You can go to bed an hour later. But I'm telling you, and when you're exhausted, if you're exhausted when you go to bed, guess what? You're going to sleep better.
It's
You're
true.
going to feel better in the morning. Okay. That's how it works. And so, if you're married to somebody, and I'm gonna ruffle a lot of feathers when I say this. If you're married to somebody that feels like they need to see you every single day, you might want to rethink that. And here's why I say it. Because that's because you're not helping anybody when you do that.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you can be married to somebody, and what I'm saying is you should be coming home. Okay, I'm not saying don't go home.
Mhm.
But what I'm saying is, like, if you're married to somebody that feels like as soon as you get home, like all your time is theirs, and you have to spend 6 hours together watching a movie and cooking dinner together and all that stuff, no, you don't need that. You
Mhm.
need quality of time. Okay, so 90 minutes. This is what I've read in a couple of good books is you need to sit down for like 90 minutes a couple times a week with your spouse and have a really good in-depth conversation, no interruptions, put your phone away, catch up on life, make plans, talk about the current state of affairs, and make sure that your state of the union is correct. Okay, but you don't need to like spend 34 hours a week
Mhm.
with your spouse. Some of that time needs to be you planning for the future, training with your gun, volunteering somewhere. Like those are the things that give you purpose.
Mhm.
Everybody's so depressed because nobody has a purpose.
Mhm.
And then boys start to think they're girls because they have no purpose.
Mhm.
Because you're not giving parts of yourself to other people. You're not serving other people. There's nothing that makes me feel better about myself than when I am helping someone else. It makes me forget my own problems.
Mhm.
Makes me
Sure.
forget my own problems, right? It doesn't mean that they're not still there. It doesn't mean that I don't need to face them, but I get a reprieve. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So get your time management together. If you need to email me about it, my email is clearingthechamber@gmail.com. I'll say it again, clearingthechamber@gmail.com. And I'll help you with your time management. Because a lot of people just feel like they don't ever get started because they feel so overwhelmed with what they have to do every day. And I promise you, you're not that busy.
Mhm.
I promise you. I've seen people who've done less with or who've done more with less.
Yep.
Okay, and people can get this done. You will grow, and the more that you do, the better that you do in your community, and the more that you give of yourself, the money will come,
Mhm.
the wealth will come.
Yep.
And so you got to start putting other people ahead of yourself, and don't think that you can't put time for self in your time management. Okay, you just don't need as much of it as you think you do.
Mhm. There you
And
go.
that's all I got to say about that.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And I think yeah, I think it's excellent advice. I've tried to more since I've done kind of this new show, give people kind of that advice and open up a little bit more about, things like that, just outside of the guns and politics. Talk a little bit more about faith too, which is not something that I used to really talk about that much. I know I had a great discussion with you about faith and the importance of faith, especially in a relationship, when we spoke earlier. So I think that's something that people need to be open to, because I think that we've got kind of a crisis of faith in this country, and that's why we have so many issues. Again, people don't have purpose, people don't have faith, and they just feel kind of alone out there, and they use that, I almost don't want to say as an excuse, but that it almost feels like it is sometimes. It's like, oh, I can't find anything, I don't have purpose. And it's like they don't try. A lot of the answers are already out there, and people just don't want to look for them anymore. It's
And a
pretty
lot of
crazy.
times your purpose, yeah, a lot of times your purpose can be shit you already know
Yeah.
that you just teach to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are craving attention or craving education, right? We're so like immersed with information, but we don't know how to like organize it to where it works for us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what's happening. You got to get your house in order before you can help someone else, so that you have the ability to come at them qualified.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come at them qualified for sure. So I would tell you, and we could do a whole nother, podcast on what that looks like. And as a matter of fact, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do a podcast in the near future on how do you get your shit together?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get your life organized? Where does it start, right? How do I manage my time? Because your mismanagement of your time actually correlates to your safety. So if you're in chaos and you have no organization and you're constantly late and you have, like, first of all, you don't have any courtesy for other people's time when you do that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've fired clients. Like I had a client that was late for 3 straight
Mm-hmm.
classes. And I'm like, you're not working with me anymore because I have a schedule.
Yep.
Okay. And I have other people that I have to teach and you're cutting into their time. So you don't have your shit together. Call me when you do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have fired clients for that. And I don't care.
Yep.
I don't care. Right. Because I got things to do. So let's do that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Let's do a podcast on what that looks like because you have more time than you think you do.
Mm-hmm.
You just do too much shit that doesn't matter.
There you go. That would be awesome.
That's all there is to it.
Fantastic. Jerah, thank you so much. This has been a long time coming. You're always one of my favorite people to talk to in person. I can't believe that we hadn't done this before. So I will look forward to seeing you again. Where can everyone find you again?
Oh my gosh. I'm on Instagram at Clearing the Chamber. I am on Twitter at Jerah Hutchins with an I. I'm on Facebook at Clearing the Chamber. Probably going to be on Rumble. I have a Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
It's at Clearing the Chamber. I just haven't done anything with it yet, but that's coming soon.
Awesome.
And yeah, so holler at me. You have my email address. I even gave you my email address. Like,
Yep.
Holler at the girl. I'm here to help. And we're gonna help you get your stuff in order. Or if you have any other questions, if you have gun questions, if you have gun training questions, I'm also on Manect. The Manect app is awesome. People always send me questions in these different messengers, and it's really hard to keep up with, and it gets
Mm-hmm.
buried under the spam and all the affiliate shit that I get that people are trying to get me to peddle their product online. And I just can't, I don't really do a lot of that. I'm a big fan of Primary Arms, and so I'm an affiliate with them, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sell your coffee, sorry. And but Manect is awesome. It's an app that came out of Patrick Bet-David's sort of mind because he got pissed off that he was charged half an hour by a lawyer for a 5-minute conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So he came with Manect, and the idea is, do you have a minute to connect? Let's Manect. And so if you download the app, it's minnect.com. You can find me on there as an expert.
Awesome.
And here's my advice. If you have questions, or you have a friend that has questions about gun training, about standing up a training business, about time management, compile all your questions and then get with me on Manect. I can do it either. We can converse via text. We can do a video call. We can do a phone call. There's different avenues, but you are guaranteed to get a response on Manect. But if your message gets buried in the Instagram or in the Twitterverse or in the Facebook, black hole, I'm not going to see it. I get a lot of messages between those platforms, or even on LinkedIn. I get a lot of really weird messages on LinkedIn, like weird. But so get with me on Manect. That's going to be the easiest way, and you're guaranteed to get an answer. But don't waste your time and don't waste your money. Definitely compile your list of questions prior, and I can get them all answered for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Jerah. Greg the Goblin showing up late, but he dropped the $20 super chat. Great guest. Jerah is fantastic. I hope you guys loved her on the show. We'll definitely have her back again. And thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all being here on the 7th episode of Rolo's Rants. And I'll catch you guys next week. Have a wonderful evening. Have a great rest of your week. Take care, everybody. And boom, we're done. The Gobbler. Greg the Gobbler.